Hello, this is my EDL 850 case study involving the internet use violations. So to begin with this, the category one is about the problem identification and analysis of this case study. So a brief summary is that there are, Mrs. Tate has worked within the school district for a while, and she has very high expectations of her students. A lot of the students within this district or this school are well off. So some of them are competing to be like valedictorian. They take their grades seriously and they try. So these students that are in Mrs. Tate's class are very stressed out because of the workload and her grading scale. So there's that competition, but also just the added stress of her class with every other part of the school. So one night after a weekend spent with her family, Mrs. Tate received an email from what she believed to be a student, basically saying they want her to disappear. So almost as she takes it almost as a death threat. So she kind of like she thinks about it, and there's a student in her class that she could see maybe doing this. So she immediately calls her building principal to kind of work out and let them know what's going on. So that's just the brief summary of it. This next part, again, we're kind of just deciding what we still need to know. So for Mrs. Tate and the building principal, they need to work together to figure out who established this Facebook page, who sent the email first. So there was that email that came across with a link, and then the link took them to this Facebook page that had multiple things about Miss Tate. I won't say a hate crime, but it was, I think she took it as a death threat. And yes, it could be teenagers just being immature, but either way, it was something that she took as a threat and needed to be addressed. So was this Facebook page a violation of the student handbook and the acceptable use policies? This is something that I think the school would definitely need to look at further in and involve the district in as well. If they have an attorney for the district, I think even using them to make sure that the necessary steps are being taken. And then that kind of leads into, were there any legal ramifications for this Facebook page? Yes, it could have been just a prank, but we need to kind of get to the bottom of it with what students were involved, what the students' intents were. For this part, it's the problem identification. So what we know from this case study is that there was a student that allegedly created a Facebook page. We believe it was to be a prank, but again, you can't just dismiss this. So this Facebook page uses inappropriate language, and there was some ambiguity with the content on this. Miss Tate kind of took it as more of a death threat. Like I said, it could have been students just trying to mess around and get back at her. But it did leave Miss Tate feeling in danger and feeling unsafe. So what I would do as the building principal is I would try and figure out how this Facebook page was created and where this Facebook page was created. If this was something that a student did at school, we need to be able to trace their computers or trace the websites and try and figure out who the culprit was. If this was on the school grounds, is this a direct violation of any school laws, any district laws, any city, state, anything? Again, I feel like I would probably involve our district attorney. I would definitely be in contact with our superintendent just to make sure that I wasn't missing any steps. Because this could have been a prank, but is also taken seriously with a staff member, it is something that I think you need to explore all your options with and try not to dismiss anything, even if it could have been just a small little prank. For this next portion, this is our category 2. So this is the proposed plan of action and the appropriate strategies for implementation. So for my plan of action, I kind of listed some of these ahead, but I would make sure to carefully review the school's acceptable use policy. And I would actually ask for either like our vice principal or counselors or someone else that was an administrator within the school to kind of go over it with me. Like if I went over it by myself, I'd also want to check with them just to make sure I didn't miss anything, because this is something that is very serious for Ms. Tate and for the students involved. The next step, I would hold the meeting with Miss Tate. I know that she called and kind of explained everything to the building principal, but I would also want to bring her in at the school so we could have a professional meeting where it wasn't just over the phone. There could be other people involved too to get the side of her story. And honestly, any other members involved. So if Miss Tate, if she had a friend that was a teacher in the school, maybe conferencing with her as well, just to kind of get her her vantage point on that. So then, after doing all of this, I would report that social media page and request that the material on that page be deleted. This is something I was a little weary of just because that could be proof. So I would definitely make sure that our tech aides or anyone else involved, even on a legal aspect, got all the information they needed. I would want this page taken down immediately so that Miss Tate didn't feel any more in danger, but it's also I want to make sure to get the necessary information to where we can track it or figure out who all is involved in this. I know that Miss Tate made an accusation that it could have been one of her students, William Hall. I would probably pull him in for questioning and just say, this happened. We're interviewing quite a few students of Miss Tate's, but I just want to get kind of your knowledge on it, just because I don't want him to feel like he's being interrogated. But this is something that if he has had issues in her class before, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. And the last part was identify appropriate consequences for those involved. So when you do finally get to the bottom of this Facebook page and the creation of it, what are the consequences going to be? Is this something that the student handbook tells you explicitly what needs to happen, or do you have to use some of your discretion? Moving on to implementation strategies. So hopefully it sounds like this school, like I said, it's in a nice area. The students come from decent families. So I would assume that they have plenty of administrators also working throughout the building. So some of the things I thought about would be to involve our school resource officer. If there's one present, I think this would be something that they could be pulled in and also talk to the students, kind of understand Mrs. Tate's side, especially if she's still not feeling safe in the school. The technology aid and the tech people within the district to make sure we're getting the necessary information from that social media page. Like I've already said, I think the superintendent needs to be involved in this. If not, I would feel like you were kind of going underneath them, like you could handle it, and this is something that would affect the district if it went any further. Then there should be other administrators within the school. I know that our district's high school has a principal, vice principal, I think 4 different counselors, and then athletic director who also serves as another vice principal. So I would make sure to have all of these people involved in this because, for one, it helps to have other people's input and their understanding different sides of stories. But also, I wouldn't want all of this to just be my concern. This is something that I think everyone needs to be addressed, and I would really appreciate the expertise coming from all of these various people. So I knew I was acting ethically and making the right decisions. I would also want to question all the students professionally. This is something that I know that some teachers and administrators within high school have students that they can favor over others. There are students that are troublemakers, and you kind of already have that opinion about them ahead of time. So I would want to make sure, this is where involving the other administrators within the school would be helpful, but I would want to question all students in a professional manner and make sure to use the same kind of questions. So, because students are going to be talking after this anyways, so I'd want to ask appropriate questions and keep things consistent and concise, because I wouldn't want students, well, this person asked me this, why didn't they ask you that? And then having some other kind of drama stir up from this. So just kind of to follow along with that, it's remain ethical, follow the school policies, make sure that you're not going and breaking anything or doing anything that could get you in further trouble. And then reflecting on outcomes. I think especially when you're involving the other administrators within the school, being able to brainstorm and work off what can we do so this doesn't happen again, or we can eliminate this from being an issue as quickly as possible. For category 3, this is resolving the issues and promoting the success of the students. So once again, acting on the facts. Do not make accusations, whether that's towards William, the student, William's friends, any staff members, or Miss Tate. You need to go by what evidence you do have. If there is no evidence, everyone is innocent. You shouldn't be blaming people. You just need to get to the bottom of the story. I would want to make sure that all the students and teachers felt safe in the school. If Miss Tate doesn't feel safe, her classroom is probably not going to feel safe, which then leaves students not feeling safe, and it can just be a domino effect. So I'd want to make it a point to all staff and students that if there are any concerns at all, please do confide in an administrator within the building, whether that be a counselor, myself, who's ever available and willing to help you. And I would make sure my staff knew that as well. with all of this going on, I would be referring back to the school's acceptable use policy often. But that would be something I really want to reacquaint myself with, so I know if this ever happened again, this is the exact protocol, and I could easily reference to that. And then just using this as a learning opportunity, you'd hope that something like this wouldn't happen again, but this can, if it does, you'd kind of understand how to handle it from this. For the resolution, this kind of stems back to our beginning questions. So the location of the Facebook page, did we figure out, was this on school property, was it at home, and what needs to be done? So then we move on to what was the intent of that Facebook page. We kind of talked about this before with like malice, but was this just a prank? Or was this more? Was this actually a threat to Miss Tate? How can we assign consequences for this and make sure that this issue is resolved? A lot of the times this is going to be very difficult, especially for adolescents, just because forgiving and forgetting isn't as easy. But we'd really want to focus on mending that relationship. The students are still going to be having Miss Tate in class, and she's still going to be present in the school. Same with the students that could have potentially been part of the Facebook page. We just need to make sure how we can get past that and act appropriately and professionally. As for the restorative justice part, I think this is making sure to facilitate the conference. I think when students are confronted with their teacher or an administrator regarding a problem or issue that they are having, it can kind of shed a new light on the teacher and the student. So hopefully by facilitating a conference, the student can kind of like, okay, I understand, like this won't happen again, because it's a little more serious than just being brought in for questioning. For category 4, this is debriefing the problem. So, and identifying and resolving. So acting with integrity. I think making sure that Miss Tate especially feels comfortable at school. You want to keep her on as a staff member. So after this whole experience, you'd hope that she would feel comfortable and able to confide in you. Also, understanding the issues. I think I mentioned this before, but making sure that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. If you do not have proper evidence, you could ruin a staff member or student's life by pointing fingers and making accusations. So understanding the problem first and foremost, I think, is important. And then conferencing with all the stakeholders. Like I said, when you meet with the administrators, this can be enlightening, because you can adjust the regulations and policies and make sure that the school is a welcoming environment for all involved. As for acting with fairness, using the Facebook page to resolve the problem, thinking before acting. Like I said before, don't just delete the page because it has inappropriate material on it. You need a tech specialist to come in and kind of analyze everything. Following the school's acceptable use policy, I can't hit on that enough, making sure to act ethically. And then making sure that you base your consequences off evidence. Like I said before, maybe William is a student that has had issues multiple times in the past, and I'm the principal, and I don't like William. I need to make sure to still make the ethical decision rather than be like, well, I hate this William kid and he's expelled. Because a lot of the times people do act on instinct, and it can come back and kind of bite them. So making sure to involve those other administrators within the building to kind of discuss what consequences should be given. And this last slide is acting in an ethical manner. So once again, not making accusations, do not jump to conclusions, try and understand the full problem first and foremost before you point fingers. Making sure that you're avoiding invasions of privacy. So for instance, if you needed to get on William's Facebook page to see if he created this, you need to make sure that it's done properly, legally, because this could again come back and bite you for an invasion of privacy. And the last one is avoid threatening and manipulating stakeholders. So this is a part where you want to make sure everyone's understanding the problem and you're not making anyone feel threatened. Thank you for watching.